You remember the room, though you've never been there. A velvet curtain, half drawn. A clock without hands. A perfume in the air, familiar, but wrong. She sits with her back to you. You speak, but no sound comes out. You reach for her shoulder, and just before you touch it, she vanishes again. You've had this dream before. Or maybe it's not a dream. Maybe it's the pattern, the rhythm that drags you back into her gravity, though you know the cost. She says she wants honesty, but when you give her truth, she blinks like she's been slapped. She says she wants freedom, but only if the walls are invisible and lined with mirrors. She says she wants a man, but only if he dies quietly under the weight of her fantasies. You wonder why the chaos always arrives after peace. Why the storm waits until you've let down your guard. And why she keeps returning to the fire she claims to fear. You think it's about love, but she is not searching for love. She is searching for the script, the one where she loses herself, in the exact same way. You meet her, and she's already rewriting you. You don't notice it at first. It's in the way her gaze doesn't land its skims. She's not looking for you. Only the outline of the story she's carried since girlhood. She smiles, but not because of anything you said. She smiles because she recognizes the rhythm, not of your presence, but of the pattern she's addicted to. And you, poor fool, believe you're being seen. No, what's being seen is a projection, a ghost of an echo. She doesn't want to know you. She wants to confirm the script. She doesn't desire unpredictability. She desires the illusion of unpredictability within the safety of repetition. She wants you to surprise her exactly when she expects it. She wants danger that turns soft just before it bites. She wants to be startled but not truly at risk. And so, you become the performer, not the man. The man is inconvenient. The performer can be managed. She trims you down, shaves off the corners, polishes your instincts. Soon, you find yourself smiling when you don't want to, nodding when you disagree, touching her when you feel nothing. And why? Because her approval becomes the only silence in the room. You think you are strong because you chose her. You think you are free because she said yes. But the deeper truth is this: she did not choose you. She chose the feeling your shape could offer her, not your thoughts, not your depth, your pattern. She chooses based on the invisible rhyme, the way your coldness echoes her father's distance, the way your voice cracks like the last one who betrayed her. You are not new, you are familiar. That's why you were allowed in. And that is also why you'll be punished. She says she wants growth, but if you grow away, she accuses you of neglect. If you grow deeper, she calls it intensity. If you grow stronger, she calls it dominance. She does not want you to become. She wants you to orbit, predictably, silently, endlessly, and you, caught in the storm of her eyes. Forget what you were before. Before you shrank to fit the story, before you began editing yourself in the mirror of her moods, before the silence between you became a maze of unsaid obligations. Do you remember your solitude, the clarity of your own hunger, the edge you once walked without fear of being misunderstood that is gone now? Because you gave her the mirror, and she turned it toward you, not to reflect you, but to erase you. You are becoming the man she can digest, the man her story will allow, a predictable tragedy, a curated rebel, a safe danger. You notice the way her voice sharpens when you step outside the boundaries. You speak a truth, and her eyes cloud, not with confusion, but with rejection. She is not interested in what is. She is interested in what feels right. And what feels right is what she's already known, repackaged, a new costume for the same ghost. You think she is complicated, but she is not. She is recursive, she loops. Not because she is deep, but because she is afraid. Afraid of the unknown, afraid of surrender that isn't staged, afraid of desire without a leash. So she calls you intense, too much, too withdrawn, too forward, too slow, always too something. Because the moment you don't fit, she panics. Not because you are wrong, but because you are real. And reality terrifies her. It cannot be cast. It cannot be directed. It refuses the cage, even if the cage is made of silk. She says she wants you to open up, but the moment you do, the spark dims. You cry once, and her admiration rusts. You share your doubts, and she pulls back, not because you are weak, but because she cannot dominate what is fully human. Her fantasy needs a flaw she can fix, not a soul she must witness. She wants cracks she can decorate, not abysses she must face. And you see it now. You were not chosen for who you are. You were chosen for how you collapse, for how your silence can be misunderstood as depth, for how your eyes remind her of the boy who lied, the man who left, the father who never stayed. She doesn't want the new. She wants the old, wearing a fresh face. She says she wants peace. But when peace arrives, she creates storms just to feel alive. Not because she is evil, but because calm reveals her emptiness, and emptiness, left unfilled, becomes unbearable. You thought your role was to build something together, but your actual task was to maintain the theater, to play your part convincingly enough that she doesn't look behind the curtain. She fears the silence between acts. So she fills it with drama, with tests, with accusations. She wants you to guess her thoughts, then punish you for guessing wrong. She wants you to chase her, then despise you for needing her. The closer you get, the colder she becomes. Not because she doesn't want closeness, but because true closeness removes control, and without control, she is lost. And here is the final cruelty. If you step out of the play, if you refuse the script, if you walk away, if you let her sit alone in the theater, she will call you cruel. She will say you are the reason it all collapsed. She will whisper that you never truly loved her. And she will believe it, because in her world, the only real thing is the story. Not the people, not the pain, only the repetition. And the man who breaks the pattern is the villain, even if he's the only one who ever saw her clearly. So now you sit in the ruins of what could not be. You hold the mask she once wore, and it still carries your scent. You remember her laughter, how it came too fast, too bright, like a match in a cave. You remember the nights her body clung to yours, not in love, but in possession. You remember the morning she looked at you with strange eyes as if she had never met you before. Because she hadn't. Not truly. She had only met the version of you she could survive. And you wonder, was it all a lie? No, not a lie. A loop. A performance so old, it forgot it was a script. And now, you know the line you were meant to say. But you don't speak it, because the curtain has already fallen, and she is already casting the next one. You thought she chose you, that her smile, her invitation, her eyes lingering longer than necessary, they were signs of free will. But you were not chosen. You were predicted, selected by instinct, not intention. The way a moth doesn't choose the flame, it recognizes it. So too, she approached you not because you were right, but because you were familiar. A thread in the pattern, a sound in the melody of her private chaos. And like all those before her, she believed herself free as she marched into the oldest cage she knew, the one she could decorate with lace and call liberation. She hates submission, so she cloaks it in choice. She obeys routine, so she brands it as ritual. She longs for protection, but demands it look like surrender. And you're given the impossible task of offering dominance that bends to her every preference. Be firm, but not rigid. Be strong, but never overbearing. Be silent, but never distant. Be expressive, but not needy. Her rules are contradictory because they were never meant to be followed. They exist to ensure your failure. That failure justifies her withdrawal, and her withdrawal becomes proof that you were never enough. You watch as she creates conflict, not to escape, but to confirm. She doesn't want peace, she wants verification. That love still lives in the apology. That attention still exists in your confusion. That your panic is a measure of your devotion. So she accuses, not because you've sinned, but because she needs to feel wronged. That's the only time she feels safe, when you are beneath her in guilt, scrambling for redemption. She calls it communication, but it is theater. She creates distance, then punishes you for not crossing it. She breaks intimacy, then asks why it's cold. You exist now as her emotional barometer, not a man, a measurement. She seeks independence, but only if she can control you with it. She claims autonomy, but her identity is entangled in how you react. The more silent you are, the louder she becomes. The more patient you grow, the more she accuses you of detachment. Your restraint is seen as threat, your stillness as rejection. And yet, if you react, you're too much, too sensitive, too intense. You learn to walk a path with no floor, a tightrope across an abyss of her shifting moods. And when you fall, she says you lost your balance. But she forgets she moved the line while you were walking it. You realize, slowly, that her idea of love is not union. It is management. She manages her image, your responses, the temperature of the room. She says she wants you to lead, but only in the direction she's already chosen. She says she wants to be held, but only in the moments she feels like surrendering. And if you hold her too tightly, even once, she will call it control. You begin to fear your own instincts. You begin to question your own nature. You begin to doubt that you can ever be loved without being tamed. And that is the secret she will never confess. She does not truly want your wildness. She wants the story of taming it. The myth that she, unlike all the others, was the one who could reach the part of you that no one else could. She wants to feel powerful in your undoing. And once undone, you are no longer valuable, because the conquest is over. She keeps the corpse but buries the soul. You tell yourself it's miscommunication, that if you just explain clearly enough, vulnerably enough, consistently enough, she will understand. But she understands already. She understands exactly what she is doing. What she doesn't know is why. The drama is not random, it is ritual. It soothes her fear of irrelevance. It gives her a sense of motion, a reason to speak, a reason to be. To stand in silence beside you would require a peace she cannot survive. So she stirs the air, the past, your voice, not to hurt you, to prove she's still alive. You were never meant to last, only to echo, a reflection, a rehearsal, a sculpture she could mold until it began to melt. The moment you stopped resisting, you became soft clay in her hands. And softness, to her, is betrayal. Not because it is wrong, but because it reminds her of herself. She cannot love what reflects her too clearly. She loves only what gives her something to conquer. She gives you compliments, but each is a leash. She says you're different, but the moment you act different, she panics. She tells her friends you're mature, but any silence you offer is framed as emotional neglect. She asks you to share your mind, but she filters your thoughts through her insecurities, measuring every word against her fears. And when you try to retreat into your solitude, the very thing she once admired, she calls it abandonment. She fell for your distance, but once possessed, she demands constant proof that you haven't left. You become 1,000 versions of yourself, edited daily. One for her sadness, one for her joy, one for when she doubts herself, one for when she envies others. And yet, none of them are real. None of them are you. You exist now as a constellation of reactions, a dance of prediction. You anticipate her anger before she feels it. You craft your words like a diplomat in a war zone. You reduce your truth into smaller bites, more digestible, less threatening. Not because you are afraid, but because you still believe, deep down, that you can earn her peace. But her peace is not yours to earn. It does not exist outside her control, and control is the only rhythm she trusts. She doesn't believe in love that grows only in love that submits. You either bend to her architecture, or you are exiled from the temple. And what is the temple? Her image of herself. She loves only what confirms her mythology. You are allowed to be strong. As long as your strength kneels, you are allowed to lead, as long as the path was hers to begin with. You reach a point where your silence is louder than her demands. You stop arguing, not out of surrender, but because you finally see the futility. No amount of patience, no depth of loyalty, no truth uttered through trembling lips will ever pierce the veil she's built. Her wounds do not seek healing, they seek repetition, the ritual of almost connection, the high of almost intimacy. She stands at the edge of the abyss and asks you to prove your devotion by jumping while she watches from safety. And when you finally break, when your voice goes flat, your touch grows colder, your gaze turns distant, she cries, "You've changed," as if she hadn't been chiseling away your edges with every sigh, every correction, every quiet manipulation. You are the ruin of the man she once praised. And she mourns what she herself has undone. Not with guilt, with confusion. She does not see her reflection in the wreckage, only yours. Because her story does not allow her to be the destroyer, only the disappointed. She will tell others you were too cold, too distant, too closed. She will say she tried everything, that she loved deeply, that she only wanted connection. But in the corner of her mind, in the echo chamber of her solitude, she will hear your silence. Not as guilt, as prophecy, because she will find another, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. Not because she is cruel, but because she believes this is how it's meant to feel: chaos, longing, collapse. Anything less would be boring, anything real would be too quiet. And the cage remains, velvet-lined, gold-trimmed, built not by chains, but by soft hands and sacred words. You thought you were entering a garden, but it was a theater, and you were the script. You gave her everything, not all at once, but in pieces like bread to a bird that flinches with every gift. At first, she was grateful, or seemed to be. She said she never met anyone like you, said you made her feel safe, said she finally found something real, and you believed her because you wanted to believe. But the truth was in her eyes, not her words. And her eyes were already bored, not because you failed, but because you stopped being a chase. You gave her the truth she asked for, and it arrived too still, too naked, too stable, and stability, for her, is decay. She doesn't say it, but her silence does. The way her voice lowers when there's no drama. The way she drifts when there's no resistance. She craved peace, but peace makes her feel empty. She thought it was love she wanted, but what she needed was disturbance. Not affection, friction. She calls herself loyal, but only until her needs are met. After that, loyalty turns to indifference. You offered her everything, and it became invisible. Your warmth became expected, your strength taken for granted, your protection mistaken for passivity. Because when she is no longer under threat, she cannot feel desire. Without conflict, there is no mirror for her to define herself, so she invents new threats, new lacks, new reasons to feel deprived. You become the enemy not when you hurt her, but when you stop performing. When your love becomes quiet, unshakable, undemanding, when it simply is, that kind of love terrifies her, because it cannot be manipulated. It does not depend on her moods, her tears, her tests. It doesn't orbit her. And anything that doesn't orbit her becomes irrelevant, or worse, uncontrollable. She begins to pick at your edges. Not because she sees flaws, but because perfection offends her. Your patience becomes a provocation, your consistency a mirror to her own restlessness. She searches for something to fix, and finding nothing, she creates it. She stirs the still water, just to watch it ripple. And when you don't react, she accuses you of emotional neglect. When you do react, she says you've changed. Every outcome leads to the same conclusion: you are failing her. Not because you are, but because you are no longer the story she's telling herself. You see it in her touch. It grows colder, mechanical. She gives you affection, but only in rhythm with guilt. She says she loves you, but the words feel borrowed, like a song she's sung too many times, now without melody. She looks at you, but the light is gone. Not because of anything you did, but because the fire she felt was never about you. It was about her reflection in your eyes. And now that the reflection has stabilized, now that it no longer shifts to meet her fantasy, she recoils. You were the man she once whispered about, the one she wrote poems for, but that was before you became real, before your consistency made her feel exposed, before your devotion stripped away the chase. She cannot desire what is always present. She cannot worship what does not withhold. She says she wants to be seen, but if you truly see her, she turns away, because the truth of herself is not something she can hold, only project. And your gaze, once intoxicating, has become invasive, not because it changed, but because it stayed. She begins to test you again, subtle at first. She cancels plans. She withdraws touch. She mentions the name of another man, casually. She forgets the things you say. She apologizes, but the damage is cumulative. Each test is a question: will you break? Each silence is a dare: will you chase me? And when you don't, when your boundaries are calm, when you remain unbothered, she grows colder. She needs you to flinch, to bleed, to beg, not because she's cruel, but because pain confirms presence. She creates distance, not to escape, but to feel missed. She wants your despair, not your joy. She wants your longing, not your contentment. When you are happy without her, she panics, because it proves that her spell is breaking, that she is not essential. And for her, being non-essential is worse than being unloved. She would rather be hated than forgotten, rather be punished than ignored. Because drama, to her, is proof of mattering. You begin to realize she was never building a life with you. She was building a mirror, a reflection that could flatter, twist, and amplify her self-image. She loved you only insofar as you confirmed her myth. The moment you existed outside that myth, you became disposable. She wants mystery, not truth, power, not partnership. She wants to be claimed, but never owned, desired, but never known. And you gave her the very thing she claimed to crave: stability, love, depth, and for that, she began to rot. It is not your presence that broke her illusion. It is your stillness, your refusal to play the game, your consistency, which left her no foothold for chaos. You loved her in a way she couldn't control, and that, to her, is unbearable. So she rewrites the story. She calls you absent, emotionally unavailable, distant. She invents flaws to explain her exit, because admitting the truth that she simply couldn't desire what she finally possessed would destroy her. She leaves not because you were wrong, but because you were right, too calm, too present. She says she's going to find herself, but she's not looking for truth. She's looking for new mirrors, ones that will distort her in just the right way, ones that shimmer with drama, ache, and possibility, not reality. That's your curse. You became real, and after she's gone, you sit in the silence. It is vast, but not empty. It holds everything you gave, Not just to her, but to the version of you that believed she could hold it. You remember the beginning, the way she laughed, like a bell in a cathedral, the way she touched you, as if you were sacred. And now, those same hands close doors behind you, those same eyes no longer see you. You will meet others who warn you, who say she's damaged or dangerous, but you will not hate her because you understand. You saw the machinery, the hunger she cannot name, the repetition she cannot break. And part of you still aches not for her, but for the version of her that almost was, the shadow that danced behind her smile, the child beneath the actress, the soul beneath the script. But she is not coming back, not because you failed, but because you succeeded. You made yourself known, and she does not know how to stay with something known. She wanted to be chased, to be won, to be craved. She did not want to be kept. She did not want to be still. And now that she has everything she asked for, she begins to rot. You dream of her once more. She stands in a corridor with no walls, just mirrors stretching into darkness. She touches one and go, and her face ripples. Not fear, not sorrow, just silence. You walk past her, but she does not turn. She is looking for herself again in reflections that lie gently, beautifully. Your name falls from her lips, but it is not a call. It is a memory she is trying to erase. And as you fade from her world, you realize she was never running from you. She was fleeing the stillness that followed your love, the stillness that revealed her. And in that silence, she began to disappear.